when after the Afghanistan withdrawal, which was a disaster, people died, no accountability was meted out. After the drone strike that vaporized those poor kids and that family, no accountability. After the Secretary of Defense went AWOL, no accountability. So if you're arguing today that we should get rid of Pete Hegseth over a small mistake regarding communications, even while he was expertly executing this military operation against the Houthi rebels, which also the Biden administration didn't take up, I don't have a lot of time for that argument today, and neither does most Republicans.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Hope all's good wherever you are. Hope everybody had a great weekend. Our boy Scott Jennings was at it again. He was on Dana Bash's show on CNN. Actually, not only Scott, but Shermichael Singleton as well. They were both cooking. On the panel, they were talking again about the signal leak. Of course, this is going to be their new January 6th on the left. Let's take a look at our boys crushing these Democrats. Let's go.
Looking into it, which James Lankford endorsed on the show earlier.
Yeah, so here's the fundamental issue with what you just heard from the Trump administration. They're losing the trust of the troops, who should be the main focus in all of this. The business of the Department of Defense is very dangerous. Every single day, they're dealing with life and death issues. It's risky and it's dangerous. And so you need our leadership, our most senior leadership at the Pentagon, our most senior leadership in the United States government, to take steps to mitigate that risk, to take steps to keep our troops safe. Pete Hegseth, he did the opposite. He put classified, sensitive material about an operation hours before that operation took place into an unclassified setting, which is one of the biggest no-nos at the Department of Defense. If somebody like me did that, I'd be out on the sidewalk. And so I think you need to really take a look at, the actions that they took and the result of it.
Scott?
Well, I think it's possible for two things to be true. One, it's possible to say this was a mistake, and it's a teachable moment, and I have no doubt they won't do it again. And it's also possible to look at, if you're trying to assess what should we do about it. I hear Democrats arguing, well, we should fire Pete Hegseth, we should fire the National Security Advisor. The bar for firing people like this is really high from the last administration, when after the Afghanistan withdrawal, which was a disaster, people died, no accountability was meted out. After the drone strike that vaporized those poor kids and that family, no accountability. After the Secretary of Defense went AWOL, no accountability. So if you're arguing today that we should get rid of Pete Hegseth over a small mistake regarding communications, even while he was expertly executing this military operation against the Houthi rebels, which also the Biden administration didn't take up, I don't have a lot of time for that argument today, and neither does most Republicans.
Guys, if you don't mind just smashing that thumbs up button for your boy, that really goes a long way to help me out. And also, if it's not your first time here and you're not yet subscribed, hopefully this could be the video that I earn your subscription. Now, that being said, our boy Scott Jennings is 100% right. They have no legs to stand on here, the Democrats, after what happened, after the issues that they had. The Secretary of Defense went AWOL. Never once was there an apology. Look what they did with the Gold Star families. Never once did they ever admit that they messed up. At least Trump admitted that it was a mess up. He said, hey, listen, I wish all these conversations could happen in closed doors behind lead walls. This was a mess up. We won't do it again. Let's move on. I actually think it's a blunder. I am not one of the people on the right that think this is nothing. I do think it is something. I think it was a mistake. I don't think you fire somebody over this mistake, though, because it's not big enough. You'll always, if you fire somebody over this, say Pete Hegseth, you'll always be firing somebody because this is not that big. Let's get back to
The problem here is that Pete Hegseth has taken no accountability. He's bashed the reporter. He's called it a hoax. He's done everything but say, hey, I made a mistake by putting this information in the Signal chat. You mentioned Secretary Austin. He stood at the podium for an hour and took accountability. He asked for a 30-day review of the hospitalization. He asked for an inspector.
Did a single Democrat ask for his resignation?
Scott, if I may.
Did a single Democrat,
Scott,
not one?
I am so glad to hear you say that this was a mistake.
Yeah.
We have not heard a single member of the Trump administration say that this was a mistake.
Trump
we
did.
need leadership.
Trump did.
We need leaders who step up, who own their mistakes,
Trump
and put
did.
out clear plans, because what I'm hearing on the ground from actual constituents is that this is a sign of the carelessness of this administration, who can't even protect national security details. What about our personal details, our tax numbers?
I want to bring in Shermichael and show our viewers some of the new polling that I teased earlier. This is from CBS out this morning, using Signal to discuss military plans was not appropriate. Overall, 76% agree with that. Mostly Democrats, 91% of Democrats, 80% of independents, and even a majority of Republicans.
Look, I'm not surprised, but I want to just go back down memory lane. I mean, Scott mentioned Afghanistan and how much of a debacle it was, but let's remind the viewers of the specifics of Afghanistan. 13 service members died. It was the deadliest attack, a single deadliest attack since 2011. A significant number of our troops were gravely wounded. And let's not forget those Gold Star families. They begged for accountability. Even many of them testified before Congress. Fire someone, demote someone. The administration did absolutely nothing. And even when Jake Sullivan told President Biden, I'm willing to resign, the president wouldn't accept the resignation. And so when Scott, when I, and other Republicans say we don't want to hear anything from Democrats, they have no moral standing to talk to Republicans about what we should do when they did absolutely nothing. When those Gold Star families, even to this day, Dana, still are begging for some type of answers for why the administration didn't protect their sons and daughters, and they want to lecture us
Chris,
on what we
what do you
did
say to
wrong.
that?
Give me a break.
Look, there's no doubt that what happened at Abbey Gate was a tragedy, just like every loss of life over the last 20 years of the Afghanistan war. We can argue the merits of why we got into the war in Afghanistan. We can argue the merits of how we got out of the war in Afghanistan. But it's up to the Secretary of Defense in those moments to do everything he can to mitigate the risk that our troops face. We did that at Abbey Gate. It was a tremendously chaotic, difficult circumstance that was extremely dangerous for those men and women.
I'm going to get Mallory in.
It is wild to me that we would rather live in the past and point blame at Democrats who are no longer in the White House. They are not the leaders in power right now. People want to know right now, what is this administration going to do? What is J.D. Vance going to do? Who in that Signal chat is going to step forward, say this was a mistake? You should not use apps that any of us can download on our phone to share sensitive information.
But you know why this is important from an argumentative perspective? Because Democrats are positioning themselves as being the authority.
Let's not
on
talk about
what went
Democrats
wrong.
versus
You
Republicans.
have
Hold
no
on.
ground to stand on
Hold on.
to lecture us about what's going wrong
why
here
are we
when you guys had a
dividing?
catastrophic
Hold on.
issue
Wait.
just
Let-
3-4 years ago.
One at a time.
Why are you so insistent on dividing this country? It is
so
not
now
about
I'm insistent on
Democrats
dividing the
versus
country?
Republicans. It is about people that I am hearing from every single day. People who are asking me, is it safe for me to file my taxes? Because if this is what they are going to do with sensitive military information, are they going to keep
Well,
my social
people are
security?
really
worried about-
They
And
are.
think of the F-18 pilot who is going to be going on the next operation.
Okay, we got to sneak.
Yeah, the Democrats talking about we can't live in the past after they spent the last 4 years or more talking about January 6th is ludicrous to me. And just like sure Michael was saying and Scott Jennings was saying, they don't get to lecture us on this, to lecture the people on the right. Not going to happen. I remember this during the BLM riots too. They talk about January 6th when Ashley Babbitt died. No police officers died in January 6th. Some of them will say that. But during the BLM riots, officers actually died. Not one Democrat ever came out and said that was wrong, that they condemned it, that the riots shouldn't happen. None of them. While this was going on, they were almost encouraging it. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, smash that thumbs up button for your boy. Consider subscribing to the channel. Help it grow. Catch you all in the next one. Peace out, everybody.